Hello, welcome to my video. My name is Derek Kalchbrenner, and I am a graduate student in the Simmons University School of Library and Information Science. This video is on the final project for Professor Bruce Tiss's Spring 2023 Database Management course. My project is called Stratemeyer Syndicate Book Database. The Stratemeyer Syndicate was a book packager that was responsible for numerous book series titles, including Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys. I collect these and other children's books titles. Stratemeyer titles were produced under certain guidelines. All were written under a fictitious pseudonym, Carolyn Keene for Nancy Drew and Franklin W. Dixon for the Hardy Boys. At least two individuals, an outliner and a ghostwriter, were actually involved in the writing of the book. The outliner would write a 2-page outline, which the ghostwriter would then develop into a finished manuscript. It was not unusual for a series to have multiple ghostwriters, nor was it unusual for ghostwriters to write for multiple series. Leslie McFarland, for example, wrote volumes for both the Hardy Boys and Dana Girls mystery series. So it raises a question of who actually wrote these books when you had so many individuals involved in the production of them. Well, this database, in addition to organizing the collection, is intended to help answer that question. So its mission is to both collect this information, but also to be of use to bibliographers, collectors, and historians. The objectives are to keep the inventory and track the book metadata, as well as to generate title and other reports, which I'll talk about in a little bit, and I will be demonstrating. A few business rules to highlight. A database record is a book. Each book has a unique ID. This database does allow for duplicate books. I, for example, have 2 copies of the 1959 edition of The Tower Treasure in my collection. That's a Hardy Boys title. Each one of those books has its own unique ID, though, so we can differentiate between the two of them. I think in one case I have 3 copies of a particular Hardy Boys title. Continuing, I did not get to populate 2 fields, which I'll show in a moment, for my books table, but I did create them, and that's the last 2 columns shown, last 2 fields shown in this sample report, date read and notes. These are intended to help me keep track of which books I've read, and also some notes on the particular title, just some brief notes of record. And you can see from this next title below it on Tom Swift that this is a book that has not been read yet, so nulls are allowed for these fields. Let's talk about the conceptual design. Let's see if I can get this all, on the field here. 5 main tables. Originally there were 6. There was a title for publisher until I realized that the Stratemeyer Syndicate used the same publisher for all of its children's series titles, and that's Grosset and Dunlap. So to minimize confusion, I made publisher a book attribute and eliminated it as a table. Originally, I also had authors titled as pseudonyms. I changed that because users think of someone like Laura Lee Hope as the author of the Bobbsey twins titles, even though she doesn't exist. This is also how they are identified on the books. And so I thought pseudonyms would just be confusing. So I changed that from pseudonyms to authors. We will know who the actual writers are because there's a ghost writers table. Now, logical design, this shows, so the five main tables are the ones where the title row is shaded, and the bridge tables are there to link the various individuals that are involved in the book's production with the actual book. And as I've said, we can have multiple outliners, ghost writers, illustrators, and so we need to have these bridge tables and have these relationships identified as well, so that to avoid confusion. So for something like Ghost Book, you would have one particular Tom Swift title that is written by a ghost writer that would represent a contract or an instance. But obviously, there are multiple books and there are multiple ghost writers. But to identify this one relationship where you have Tom Swift in the Nuclear Caves of Fire that was written by Tom Mulvey, I believe, I needed to have a bridge table where I could identify both the book ID and the ghostwriter ID. And so that way I'd be able to know who wrote that particular book. All right, we will move down. We don't need to look at the field spec sheets. These are here, some examples of that. So now the physical implementation, you will see that, you'll see all of that here. Sorry, this just got very small and I'm afraid if I touch something else will go wrong. But maybe if I just do that, nope, that, there we go. All right, no, that's wrong too. All right, we're almost done with this. This represents the work that I did putting this information both into MySQL and then into the web interface as well. What I did end up doing in order to try to demonstrate the power of this database and the power of really any database is I added some additional titles, which are not currently in my collection. I'm just viewing this as aspirational, just so I could show the searches with a little more nuance than what I actually have in my collection. But let's actually take a look at the database now. So here's my database. Whoops, that's not the home page. Here's the home page. We have the navigation bar here, and I'm going to demonstrate each one of these. These two things here, these aren't really, they're queries, but they're not really searches. This is to help refresh a user's memory on different titles and book series. This is what I have in my collection, and also I have added some titles as well for the purposes of this demonstration, some of which I'm going to delete. And so just to give you a sense of what is here, you can click on this, and in order to demonstrate some of these, you'll need to come back to this to find out a book's ID. This is just a handy place to grab that. Same thing with authors as well. These are a list of some of the authors that wrote these titles. Let's see. So if we go back to this page for a moment, I'm going to enter a title that is not currently in my collection, The Haunted Showboat which is a Nancy Drew mystery. And we see if we look here that that's not, I have the Haunted Bridge, but I don't have the Haunted Showboat. So let me go up, I'm going to enter that title into the database, and that's Nancy Drew. And we're just going to make up a year because I'm actually going to change it. Aspirational will say that this book is like new, and Grosset and Dunlap is the publisher. So we enter that, and we see one record added. We go back to our home page, and we click on this, and we scroll down a bit. We see there's the Haunted Showboat. So that's been entered into the database. This is book ID 77. So, and I wrote that it's published in 1978. Well, what if we found out it was actually published in 1981? Well, we could go back and change that. We enter its ID 77. And again, this the modify, this section is not that robust as of yet, but certainly more forms could be added to this. But we'll just change the year published for that particular title. Okay, and it says year published has been updated. We go back to home page and look at that. The Haunted Showboat, there, it's now published in 1929. And since I don't have this title in my collection, I'm actually going to delete it. So I'm going to delete it there. Book deleted. And we go back to this. Okay, we see it's gone. The Haunted Bridge is there, but not the Haunted Showboat. Now the searches. So if you wanted to find out who actually wrote a book that you enjoyed, you can type it in here. This is a Nancy Drew title, The Secret of the Old Clock. And let's see. Oops, I think I misspelled it. Oops, I didn't finish writing it. Secret. Let's try that again. Oh, shoot, I'm in the wrong. Find all the works. Nope. Find the actual writer of the book. All right, here we go. The Secret of the Old Clock. Type that in. We see Mildred Wirt was the actual writer. Now let's see. Now we can go here and let's see what other books did she write. You can type in her last name and all of these different titles come up under her name. And we can see that she wrote both Nancy Drew and Dana Girls mystery series. Now, one search, list all creators involved in a book's production. Throughout this project, I was referring to this search as Moby Dick because it involved a lot of information, and I wasn't sure I was going to be able to do it. But I did manage to pull it off. So if we wanted to know all of the creators involved in the Hardy Boys title, The House on the Cliff, we can type that in. We see that the outliner was Edward Stratemeyer himself, who founded the syndicate. And you'll see in this title his daughters, Harriet Adams and Edna Squire, carried on after him. Leslie McFarland was the ghostwriter, and the book was illustrated by Rudy Nappy. Also, we're getting close to the end here. I'll just show one more thing. The very first Hardy Boys book that I was given was a book called The Mysterious Caravan. And that's a book I still have in my collection. And interesting enough, when we do the Moby Dick search on this, we see that the outliner and the ghostwriter are the same person. That can happen. Sometimes the syndicate hired the same person to outline the book as well as to write the book. So that is my database, and I invite you to look at this and look at Bobbsey Twin, Tom Swift, Nancy Drew titles that you might be familiar with, and find out some more information on them. Thanks so much for watching.